It's a DACC. It's a DACC. It's a DACC. DACCCAST. Cause I said it's a DACC. It's a DACC. It's a DACC. DACC. DACCCAST. DACCCAST.
You're listening to DACCast, produced by students of Danville Area Community College. And now your hosts, Kaya and Keegan.
Hello. It's Kaya and Keegan here from the basement of the clock tower.
Here on DACCast, we get to know the familiar faces we see all over campus in hopes that students at DACC and members of the community get to know each other a little better.
With that being said, we are here with a very, very influential member of the faculty. And if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us your role here at the college.
Well, I'm really not good enough to be in the faculty. They won't take me. I used to teach, but now I'm the president of the college, so yeah. I'm not allowed to teach. I'm an administrator, so what I try to do is look busy most of the day.
Gotcha. Okay, what does your normal general day look like here on campus?
Well, we'll usually, one of the things that we pretty much, by the way, my name is Stephen Nacco, I'm sorry. It's so rude when you But Kaya and Keegan, you are the legends, and we're so glad you're doing this, and you're here as students, and you're helping really build a program here that I'm very, very happy to see that students are engaged, and you're working with Laura Henskin and Guido Estevez and Keith Miller. It's just wonderful. So What I do is, a lot of my work is outside the college. So I'll work with community people. So I'll say half my day is trying to build DACC with regard to some of our elected officials, with regard to community members, to ensure that we're still relevant in what we're doing. Meeting with local manufacturers. We have over 34 manufacturers in Vermilion County, and part of our mission is to support them. So a lot of my job, half my job is outside working with external stakeholders. And also with what oversees our college, the Board of Trustees. It's a 7-member board, elected board, and the 8th one is elected. That's a student trustee, and making sure that they're kept apprised of everything we're doing. So that's the other half of my job is in-house, working with the vice presidents, working with the cabinet, the college cabinet, which are really department heads, and making sure we're all working together collaboratively and really to the mission of the college, which is to serve students and help students learn and succeed here and also in jobs afterward, or if they're transferring. In fact, my day-to-day, I have to write 3 references. I'm going to help students get into universities to finish their degree. One of them already did 3 years here and a 3+1, so this will be just the 4th year to get a bachelor's, and the other 2 are going to have associates, and they're going to go to finish their bachelor's. So that's kind of a day. That's a normal day.
Seems pretty jam-packed.
Well, it's fun. And you know what? Other than the Board of Trustees, I don't have any boss. It's nice not to have a boss. And I'm going to say to you, both of you, Kaya and Keegan, get a job where you don't have a boss anymore. So for first 30 years of your work life, work for somebody. Yeah. And then realize how much you hate having a boss, and then get a job where you don't have a boss. And you'll appreciate it.
Yeah, I will.
And you'll have hair by the time you reach my age.
Okay, so your normal day seems a little hectic to me. You have a lot of power in your hands, and I feel like that's not something that Keegan can walk right into and oversee that position right now. So what is your background? How did you get here to be able to do that? What jobs did you have in the past, and where did you go to school?
Well, I started off as an English major, a very happy English major, at an upstate university in New York State. That's like a community college, because my whole tuition was $345 a semester, and I could take up to 18 credits. So I could work in the summer, pay for that, pay for board, which is another $1,000 a year. Wow. And so that was my undergraduate. So back then, I was thinking about education, but I really wanted to just be an English major and have fun. And I loved reading and writing, so I knew I wanted to do that. And I graduated and spent some time in London with my parents, and then came back here and then went to St. John's and said, this English major stuff is good, so I got a master's at St. John's. Then I went to Fordham University and got a doctorate also in English literature. So I really thought I was going to be teaching at a university. Now, at the time, I had taught for about 7 years at St. John's, teaching first basic skills writing, then literature classes. But before I went and jumped into a full tenure track job, somebody who had been my department chair at St. John's had jumped into the New York City Transit Authority subway and bus system. And I had been working on my dissertation at the time. And I said, you know what, let's just try that. I'm just going to see what it's like. And my first job was trying to teach conductors how to make announcements on New York City subway trains. Oh yes, it's what we call the Sisyphus myth. It's where you try to push the rock up the hill, and just when you think you're there, and you meet people, they say, why is it on the train? He says, ladies and gentlemen, and then you hear them in real life. That's how they normally talk. It wasn't the public address. They just talk like they mumble all the time. I gave up that at 10 months. But I stayed in the Transit Authority. So I wound up working for the Transit Authority for 13 years and said, I just loved it. It was 50,000 employees, 5 boroughs of New York City. So living and working in New York City was really exciting when I was in my 20s. And then, and 7 million passengers. And as I got into marketing and public relations, I realized, how many jobs can you have where you go out, meet the media, New York media, and say, hey, we had a great day today, people. We killed only 2 people. Now, there's not a lot of jobs where you could say that and they'll applaud you. Only 2 died today? That's great. No, actually, 1 died and 1 we ran over his legs. Okay, so other than that, you had a good day. So anyway, that was my job. It gets old after a while, but as exciting as it does seem. And back in my mind, I knew somehow I would be back in higher education. But big, expensive universities didn't thrill me very much. And I had been teaching on the Staten Island campus of St. John's, and I didn't want to go back. I just didn't want to go back into that. But then, kind of on a lark, I said to my staff at the Transit Authority, I'm going to apply for this community college job. And I'm going to meet some clown who wears a sweater and golfs all day, and he'll be the president of a community college. And I'm never going to work there, but I'm going to just try it. So I applied, and then what happened was it was Saturday morning, called me in at 9 in the morning. I went into the conference room. There he was in his sweater. I almost tripped over his golf clubs on the way in. I said, how about that? That's pretty prescient, I thought. So I get in there, I sat, and I listened to him, and he talked for 2 hours. I talked for 5 minutes. So then I'd never had an interview where I didn't get to talk. He was just a blah, 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 blah. So he went on and on about community colleges. And then I went back to my wife. I drove back home, and it was about an hour from where we lived. And I said, Cindy, I think they're never going to hire me because I'm a transit guy. Nobody's going to hire a transit guy. Even if I had a doctorate, it didn't matter. I'm a transit guy. They had a stack of resumes this big for this job at this college. But I'm going to tell you, community colleges are pretty exciting. I really love what they do. It's not what I thought. It's transfer. It's helping people in careers like nursing, welding, and things like that. It's helping local jobs. I love this place. And you know what else? And this is, I'll say 20 years later, I still feel the same way. We don't send students off, graduates, with $50,000, $100,000 in debt. Yep. We turn around their lives and they can go away with things. So I said, but they'll never hire me. Week later, I get a call while I'm in the middle of East New York, Brooklyn, and the staff's there, and I had Ma Bell Meadows, who was screaming at Jerome, her husband, on the phone, dropping F-bombs, and I'm thinking, you know what? They're offering me a job. Why don't I think about it? So I even took a pay cut, but I said, I'm going to try it. So that's when I started community colleges. So Brookdale Community College in Lincroft, New Jersey was the first one. And then when I was there, the chief academic officer, an amazing person by the name of Dr. Margaret McMenamin, we hired her I was there for 9 years. So about 5 years into that job, met her and I said, you're fabulous. So she went on to another college, Union County College in New Jersey, and she said, you've got to come with me. I said, I will. So I followed her like a couple of months later. And I stayed there at that college for 6 years. And then a really funny thing. So I was sitting in the bathroom. I have as my reading material, DACC Flash being one of them. No, I shouldn't say that. but the reading material, we have the thing called the Chronicle of Higher Ed. So my wife, Cindy's from Chicago. And so for 30 years, we would drive back to Chicago and see all of her relatives. So one day she pulled up the Chronicle of Higher Ed, and she said, Danville, why don't you apply to Danville? I said, Danville? I said, and she has an aunt in Homewood, who's south suburb. In fact, our new chief academic officer, Dr. Page, is from Homewood. And she had the same problem I had. We're geographically challenged. Read about the college, loved it, but Homewood has a big sign that says Danville. It also has a sign that says Memphis. So Cindy, my wife, said, you should apply, thinking it's south suburb. So I applied, and then I said, well, why aren't they flying me out to Indianapolis, you know? It just seemed dumb. Oh, no, you're dumb. You have to look at the map. See where Danville is. It's not a south suburb of Chicago. It's about 2.5 hours south of there. So I came out here. We fell in love with the place. We love Danville. We love Vermilion County. Wow. It's just I've never been in a community that's warmer and friendlier, and I just love it. I live in Danville, so I'm getting enough of my feel of being around people. You couldn't put me in a cornfield. That's Stephen King, Children of the Corn. I mean, it's beautiful, but don't do it to me. Every year, my wife and I do what's called Ragbri, which is a bicycle ride with 20,000 other crazy people across Iowa. And it's the last week in July, so it's always a hot week. But that's how, since 2014, I got to appreciate how the beauty and really how agriculture works in America. When you're in the East, you have no clue of what beans and corn and what it means to economy and what agriculture is. So GMO to us, we thought that meant it was radioactive. and the other thing is I was 60 years old when I first got here, which I got here in 2016. And I thought with the first harvest here, I looked out and it's September or late August, and all the corn is dried out. And I said, so what do they do with that? They burn all that? They said, burn it? What are you, crazy? I said, well, harvest. To me, the harvest was we'd eat corn in July. They'd pick the corn and we'd eat it. That was it. Then that was it for the corn, but I didn't get it at all. But the chair of the board here has just done this with Dr. Page, our new chief academic officer, put me on a combine. And I got to see what it was like in a farm and how it matters and how it feeds a lot of different economic chains in the country. So I really have gotten to love ag.
That's so cool.
As we teach it. So I've been talking too much. You have like 40 more questions.
No, it's okay.
Now, so you basically stumbled upon DACC on accident.
Well, my wife saw it in the Chronicle for Higher Ed. I applied, and they did like a Skype. That's what we did back then, pre-Zoom Skype interviews. So they did a Skype interview, and then they called me up for an interview. And I really just love it. I love the place.
Gotcha.
And you said that you got your degrees in English, right?
And then you know what? I'm going to tell you something. You're never too old to go back to school. So I've been in college 17 years.
Wow.
So right around 2007, while I was at Brookdale, my first college, they had a program in educational leadership, EDD program, educational doctorate, for community colleges. So this time I could study something that was related to my job and something I loved, which were community colleges. So then I did a second doctorate in that and finished that in 2010. That was, to me, the first one was, it was grueling, excruciating. It was you had to go through all of the hoops, the second foreign language, 12-hour testing? Yeah, they did the stuff. And that's before you even start your dissertation. The second one was fun. You got to work on something in your own college. And while you're working on your project, you're working on your classes and your dissertation. It was all integrated. Wow. And it was, to me, enjoyable. And it was something I liked. I liked community colleges. So that was my second. But I did that. I hate to say it was fun, but it really was fun. And then when you go into a second dissertation, you don't make any of the mistakes you made at the first one. Meaning if somebody on your committee even crosses eyes at you, Oh, by the way, you're gone. See ya. Goodbye. You don't have to. It's your dissertation. You don't know that the first time around. The second time around, it's like marriage. I'll say it's like marriage. The first time, okay, so maybe the spouse is a bit of a pain and pushes you around. The second time, you give it back to him. You learn your lesson. So I'm not saying you should marry multiple times, but if you do the second time, I hope you're smarter than you were the first time.
Okay, so you went to college in New York, but did you grow up in New Jersey?
New Jersey was like one of my worst nightmares. I was really from upstate New York, then I lived in Massachusetts, then I lived in Vermont, then I lived in upstate New York again, then back to Massachusetts, then downstate near New York City, then London, then New York City, then New Jersey.
You lived in London? Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, after I had gotten my bachelor's, my parents were out there. My father was the head of Firestone for Northern Europe.
Oh.
And I just did a lot of pub crawls. Took some classes.
How old were you then?
I guess I was 20 when I graduated, so 20 to 23.
Okay.
And then after that, I got an assistantship at St. John's. So I'll say to all of you, if you're going to get a master's degree, make sure your institution pays for it. Get an assistantship. It was a teaching assistantship, and it got me really launched in a lot of things. They pay for it. They gave me $75 a week. But to me, back in 1980, $75, that's a lot of beans and franks you could buy for $75.
So, were you a Yankees fan before you got to Queens, or have you always been a Yankees fan?
I came out of the womb with pinstripes. They said, "What's wrong with that baby? He's got all these lines on him." No, my first Yankee team was 1964 when they lost in the World Series to the dreaded Cardinals. And then my first game at Yankee Stadium was 67, and that's pretty much been it.
Okay, gotcha.
Wow.
And you don't like the song Sweet Caroline, is what I've heard.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. How do you feel? Yeah. How does that song make you feel?
Well, it's chalk, blackboard, and you got your fingernails on a blackboard. It's about that level. Well, it's a Red Sox song. It's also a New York Jets song, so that shows you that losers all have the same song. Because I'm also a Giants fan.
You're a Giants fan? I'm really sorry about that.
Well, I have 4 Super Bowls. How many do you have?
That's true. I'm from Cincinnati, so I don't have anything.
Oh my goodness! You have nice colored helmets, though. I love those helmets when they did those.
So, what's the biggest difference from living on the East Coast in New York, Massachusetts, and then coming to Danville?
Well, I was saying to Dr. Page this morning, and she's Chicago. When you're in Danville, you could be anywhere really in the East Coast. You've got the vitality that I need vitality. I'm not saying I have to have a street light, but I need to know that there's one within a mile at least. So then, but the difference is when you drive 10 feet outside of Danville, it's a vast expanse of just farms, flat. And anywhere I've ever lived in the East Coast, there was always, you're in a town, oh, now you're in another town, now you're in another town. They all just merge.
Yeah.
And what we called suburbs, there's nothing like that here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You go from quasi-urban to stark rural.
Yeah.
I mean, it just becomes very rural.
Yeah. So when you were introducing and talking about your role, you mentioned a lot of the manufacturing places that you've worked with. How else are you involved in the community outside of?
Well, let's just deal with the manufacturers to start with. To me, it was like coming to Disney World because where I left in New Jersey, all the factories were empty. Mm-hmm. All of when Barack was president, they started the Trade Adjustment Act. That was to help workers who lost their jobs to oversee all these manufacturers. So it was tough in New Jersey and New York to be able to do any manufacturing. And we had the relation. When I got here, 34 of these manufacturers, and you hear, oh, but we had GM. Well, GM was big, but GM's workers weren't skilled. I mean, you see the real skilled workers we have. Places like Watchfire, ThyssenKrupp Presta, and ThyssenKrupp crankshaft, and just all of these manufacturers are doing things for computer skills, engineers. If either of you are an engineering student, they'll cut their arm off to hire you.
Yeah.
I mean, and they'll pay for your bachelor's, several of them. So the high-tech manufacturing that's going on here is exciting to me. I also, though, to answer back to your question, right now, I just happen to be the chair of Vermilion Advantage. Vermilion Advantage is the economic development company that oversees, really helps bring business into our community. So my involvement in that is very important. I'm on Kiwanis, that's a civic group, and Rotary. It's important to do that. It's networking with people. I also work with Tanya Hill. This is by far and away the most generous community I have ever seen. I'm going to say per capita, but also per real dollars, for community donors who understand and appreciate the value of education and the value of DACC in this community. This is an anchor in this community. It is, yeah. And so when DACC doesn't even have to ask community members. I see people living in houses that cost $40,000, and they have endowments here that are $40,000, meaning they've contributed to scholarship funds that are the same value of their houses. It's just amazingly generous.
Yeah.
And they love, I mean, like our honors program, when you see the students and the donors together, it's $600,000 a year to students.
Wow.
For a college this size is phenomenal. So I spend time with Tanya Hill, who's the executive director of the foundation, making sure that our donors really, that we appreciate them, we understand, and we want to hear whatever they need.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Okay, we're going to completely switch gears.
Uh-oh, this is rapid fire.
No, it's not rapid fire yet, but we want you
It's up at
to
the top.
tell us, where is it?
Top.
The top. We want you to tell us a little bit about this video.
So tell us a little bit about what's happening in this video here. Is it playing?
I think there's a weasel behind a bush.
Oh yeah?
It's a weasel with a bald head.
Interesting.
He's
For
got a-
anyone who can't see,
He's got a licorice stick in his hand. Is he eating it?
Dr. Nacco is walking across DACC's campus playing the clarinet.
Oh, I'm on my way to the pep band. See,
You were practicing?
The other thing is, I mean, I love walking around campus. And I love seeing students, and I love seeing faculty in classes. And I think part of my job is on campus. So walking around and seeing things and being part of things. So I'm not getting a scholarship for this, but the pep band, if it needs a third clarinet, here I am. I'm here to play clarinet for the pep band. I think obviously Guido Estevez, Steve Meadows do fabulous with that. Laura Henskin is a clarinet too. She might be the second clarinet, but if I'm third, we don't really have a first, I don't think.
Yeah.
But we have fun doing it. So I had to get my reed wet. So I'm walking across playing. I don't know what I was playing, but I like to find something. There's only a few songs I could play. It could be When the Saints Go Marching In, or maybe I was playing, was it the Van Morrison song, Moon Dance? It could have been that.
Gotcha. So we heard that you wake up very early every day and play the clarinet.
Yeah, well, I start a day with the clarinet. If I played at 3 a.m, my wife would smack me. So I really wait until she wakes up, which is a little later than that. But I wake up early in the morning.
So what motivates you to do that?
What
What motivates you to keep playing?
My eldest son is 30. Oh, you mean playing? Or
Yeah.
to wake up, here's why I wake up at 3 a.m. So, and then the playing. The waking up at 3 a.m. began when my son was born, and my wife was taking care of him. He was 30. He's 30 now, so 30 years ago. And I would do the feeding, and that was something that I said, but it's a very quiet, nice time at 3 a.m. And at the time I was working in the transit authority, so I would commute about an hour and a half, trains and buses and stuff like that. So I really needed to get ready. But the quiet of that time, I realized I can read, I can write, I can do a lot of work there, and it was what I'd say it's pristine time. The other thing is I learned that my son, feeding him at 3 a.m. wasn't a very good thing because, I have like hair on my breast, so it wasn't as good as my wife doing it. But it was, you two laugh well. I should have you with me when I start going a little off the rail. But I found that. Now, the clarinet is something I've played for 50 years. So I've played it for 50 years. This is another real Danville story. But I'd only played for our cats. So I didn't realize till I got here. The first time I did something here, we had a play. It was Funny Girl. So they needed somebody in the orchestra. Professor Langley was producing it. Professor Bowling, who retired a couple of years ago. So it was a musical. So I was playing in that, really, literally, third clarinet. And then somebody said to me, you're out of tune. And I said, what? I didn't even know a clarinet could be out of tune. My cats evidently are tone deaf. They never said to me, oh, you're out of tune. So then they showed me that. So I've been learning then, and I hadn't been conducted since I was 12. So that was my first experience being conducted. Now I'm in the municipal band, and obviously the pet band, that's the big thing. But never had to play with other people since I was 12, because band. But I continued to play clarinet because I like clarinet. And now I have to worry about other people playing around me. So that's it.
Fair enough. That's pretty interesting. So wait, so you said you were 12? Was that when you first started
That's
playing?
when I stopped. I probably started around 7 or 8. Got a clarinet. My first one was a steel one. I used to use it as a baseball bat every time I squeaked. But then I got a regular clarinet. But then it was band. Who wants to be in band? I wanted to be the third baseman of the New York Yankees. I haven't made that, but nobody wants to. Anyway.
So you have talked about DACC a lot and why you like to be here. And you told us about how you stumbled upon us. But what was the process like of getting the job? I read an article and it was talking about how it got down to like 3 finalists and it was a pretty rigorous process. So could you tell us a little bit about that? Give us
Well,
some
it was
insight.
3 finalists, and one of who turned out to be one of the best friends we have here is Sybil Mervis. She was one of the ones as part of the process. We had to meet the community, and the community then, for each of us individually, we would come in and we'd meet community, and they'd ask questions. And Sybil said to me, this is my first words, she said, why is it that someone from New York, New Jersey would ever want to come and live in Danville? And then I explained, well, my wife's from Chicago, and there were 9 families when we moved here who were all living in Chicago. No, wow. not at the time, but originally for 30 years, we would drive to Chicago 2 or 3 times a year from New Jersey to be with their family. Her father was in Chicago. They've all since scattered west, Naperville, up to Antioch, Kenosha. I mean, some of these weird towns have been in the news. They're all relatives are there. I hate to say it, but Indianapolis, Champaign. I mean, there's one in Champaign. Our cousin Chris just adopted somebody. So the family was all there, and that was the answer. So we met the community and each of us. Now, I lost a bet because I bet with somebody at my last college. I said, they're going to hire this other person. She has 10 times better credentials than I do. So I was very surprised that, they wanted me to come. So it was meeting the community, I think, was a very good thing, and bringing my wife here. And then when they announced it, we made sure we drove in from New Jersey to go to the board meeting when it announced it, because this is the best community I've lived in 63 years. And it's, if that doesn't mean anything to people, I mean, if you've lived here your whole life, you might not have the perspective. But if you come from the outside and you see how charming this place is, the problems are easily solved. I mean, everything they say gets blown out of proportion here. This is not anything. You should go work in Bedford-Stuyvesant sometime and have a crack addict as your assistant. That is a lot different from anything you're ever going to do here.
So you've been here since 2016, so you're relatively new to the college.
Yes.
Okay. So how did people here receive you initially?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I'm not, between grades kindergarten and 12, I moved, we're not sure, either 7 or 8 times. Okay. And it was what I said, Massachusetts, Vermont, upstate New York. It was 7 or 8 of those moves before I graduated. In fact, we moved twice in 2nd grade. There was a 2nd grade I was in. I can't remember where it was. It was the middle 2nd grade. Normally you move into a place and you're ignored. The goofiest person in the whole area wants to be your friend because he's no one else's friend. That's normal. So you have to deal with that. And otherwise you're a pariah until you eventually they'll warm up to you, and then you move again. So that was basically my life. But there was this one second grade in between the other 2 second grades where I got there, and all of a sudden all the kids wanted to be my friend. I don't know, they must have all been very bad athletes because I was the best athlete. And I was the smartest one in school. The teachers loved me. I said, this is the best. This is like being in heaven. and then, of course, then my father got promoted again, and we moved, and I had to say goodbye, and then I was a stranger again and treated like dirt. But that 1 second grade, and I'm not sure, it was either in Schenectady, New York, or Rutland, Vermont. It was one of the 2 places. My parents are dead, so I can't really get the answer out of them. But that's what Danville was like. I mean, all of a sudden I get here, and people, oh, we love DACC, and if we love DACC, we love you. Wow. I'm not used to that. Yeah. People don't love me, so it was really welcome and warm. The other thing is, my whole life I've never had a commute like this. The shortest commute I've ever had is 1 hour and 15 minutes each direction.
Oh
now it's 11 minutes.
Wow.
So for the last 4.5 years, I've had an 11-minute commute through. I mean, I go back past goats. It's just, you know the goats. Everybody knows the goats. They keep hopping around and.
So 5-10 years down the road, once we get past everything that's going on right now, what are your long-term goals for Danville?
I want to see DACC continue to do more with local business and continue to integrate a lot of what we have in our corporate education under Stephanie Yates, and also with our new Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Page, and her deans, continue to build more as needed programs. Right now we just met with the casino people who will be coming in, and there are a whole slew of jobs and careers that they're going to be offering, and they're going to depend on DACC to prepare people for things like slot technician and dealers and stuff like that. They'll go right into these jobs. Wow. While you're dealing, you could be continuing with other degrees here. There's so that's it. So I want to see that. I'd like to see an on-campus athletic field, like for the softball team. Yeah. And it would be perfect right out front, so that not just for the team, but also students, they come here and they've got a place, they could do that. We have the U.S. Army Reserve, which we own it now. We got it after about a 2.5 year struggle. So that will become the home of healthcare professions. So we can expand our nursing, rad tech, sonography, echocardiography, health information technology programs, get them over there, and really build a healthcare profession, sim lab, and everything else there. Wow. That's also something we need to do, and I'd like to be part of that.
Gotcha. Okay.
No kidding.
Well, that was our formal process. Now we're going to get into the more informal.
Should I pull my tie down?
So now we're going to get into our DACC attack.
1, 2, 3, 4. DACC attack, 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 DACC attack.
I mean, that's it?
Summer or winter?
See, these are hard questions. Oh my God, winter.
Dogs
Summer.
or cats?
Summer. Summer. I forgot. I forgot. I'm old. When I was young, I liked winter.
Yeah.
Now that I'm old, I like summer.
Okay.
Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Basketball or baseball?
Baseball.
East Coast or
Basketball
Midwest?
too, though. East Coast or Midwest? Come on. I should have like a
The Bronx or Queens?
Bronx. Queens? Who'd live in Queens?
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Eat in or dine out?
Eat in.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee? Are you kidding? I'd take it intravenously if I could.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
And lastly, oceans or mountains?
Oceans for me, mountains for my wife.
Okay. There you go.
All right.
Okay, so we just wanted to thank you for being here. We had a wonderful time.
Thank you.
We had so much fun, and we really appreciate you being here.
Well, I appreciate you two being here and doing this. And so keep up the good work and keep podcasting. This is just great.
Thank you.
A beautiful
you.
set, and you have really good crew here. And so glad you're doing this.
Thank you guys for listening. This has been the DACCast with Kaya and Keegan.
Stay classy, Jaguars.